Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Cahill, and I lead our social marketing practice for Emerson. And a lot of what I'm going to present to you today about LinkedIn is things I share with our subject matter experts across our business units and world areas. So today's topic, or this session, is the whys, hows, and whats of LinkedIn. And there was a good book many, many years ago, Simon Sinek, Start with Why. And it's really because if you don't get the why, there's no point in going on to the hows and whats and everything else. So let's dive into it and start with why LinkedIn for us in business to business industries here. It starts out, it's about your brand. A brand, I think Jeff Bezos had it right. A brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Well, of course, he's referring to a personal brand, much like the valves that we have are branded and it gives people a certain thought about it. They also think about you, other people, based on what you've done, the summation of interactions that you've had with them. And LinkedIn is a powerful mechanism that you can use to build your personal brand. Now, there's many different social channels out there, but when you think about LinkedIn, you think about your personal brand in a professional sense. What is your role, the value to those you serve as an expert? What is the role, value to your company as you're part of the company? And what are social media, and really LinkedIn in particular, what can they do to help amplify that value and build that personal brand? And every year, an agency, Edelman, puts out a trust barometer study, and it goes and looks at what do people find credible from companies. And year after year, I've been looking at this over many years, and this is the 2020 edition, comes out that at the top every year are the company technical experts. Those are the people viewed as most credible. Academic experts follow a little closely behind that, and a person like yourself. So people that you connect and interact with, you tend to trust more, because if they're not trustworthy, you don't stay connected in all of that. So very importantly, as you think about your company and building your company's reputation, more and more it's about those experts within your company and those who find credible. And LinkedIn is a tremendous way, without being face-to-face or in a phone call or at a conference, to be able to build some of this credibility. And because it lives in the digital realm, become much more findable, have your experts become more findable, has you as an expert become more findable. So why LinkedIn? Most of us know basically all our customers, by and large, are in LinkedIn. It's the world's largest professional network with more than 500 million users across 200 countries and territories. It's a networking spot for professionals, and it has a certain way in there. It's nothing like Facebook or Instagram or some of the others that are much more personal and sharing there. So it's people sharing expertise, and it's a great place to build your personal brand by sharing things in your interests and your expertise, kind of brick by brick, building your brand. And it's also a place to connect with other experts in your field or people that are influencers, learn from them and gain knowledge. So that's why LinkedIn. So that's it on the whys. Hopefully there was enough in there to convince you that, hey, let's move on to the hows we do it. And when I think about hows, you hear horror stories that social can get you into trouble, and there's a bunch of don'ts and everything. So we'll quickly go through some of those and then get into the particulars, the what's around LinkedIn itself. Let's start with the do's. And these are ones we've come up with here at Emerson, trying to keep them short, memorable in there. The first, be transparent. Don't try to pretend to be someone you're not. Be genuine in what you're doing there. And responsive is, we all know people that you send an email to, you never hear back, and it kind of damages maybe what you think about them and their personal brand. So as you engage with others in social, you want to be responsive about things. Be engaging, be an expert. That's really just about being willing to share that expertise that you have in there. Of course, the lawyers have for us all, follow the rules. Very important part of all this. And finally, be respectful. There's other platforms, Twitter and others, where it can get pretty, people screaming and yelling at each other. Thankfully, LinkedIn stays much more professional. It's rare that happens, but you want to make sure that the way you interact with others, you do so in a very respectful way. So let's look at the don'ts. And don'ts can be typically implied in an affirmative way, like do protect information. But what that really means is don't disclose confidential information, intellectual property, trade secrets, non-public financial information, others' personal information. You've got a list for all the communications ways that you say, and the same applies with the things that you do in social. And follow the law, follow the code of conduct. You don't want to violate those things that can get you into trouble with your company or with the local jurisdictions in your area. And be responsible. You don't want to speculate on something. Hey, I know a great valve for that cat cracker over there. Well, I wouldn't do that. I don't know enough I'd be dangerous, so I wouldn't speculate on something like that. Or don't put something that you wouldn't proudly show your boss. That's a real good filter to help you keep right from wrong. And be nice. Don't troll. Don't be like the other platforms. Things will come up from time to time. It's best to take those offline and maybe get help, maybe from the legal team, the PR team, the HR team. When you see something like that or something going on that you don't think is right from within your company or beyond somewhere else, take it offline where you can. And specifically for LinkedIn, since we've got kind of our do's and don'ts section, we'll talk about some of this in a little bit, but you do want to don't just use it to push out your own content, but you want to read and engage with other content, share interesting things, and engage by if somebody put something that you thought was a good article or something, they shared something about it and you found it of value, spend the time to like it, add a comment, or reshare it with your connections. And don't. A lot of us like to follow what the competition is up to doing, and that's fine. And LinkedIn allows you to do that through following, but you don't want to engage with it and share the liking it or making snarky comments or anything like that. Look at it as read only, but don't engage with any of that. And also, last one more about, you don't want to be, unless your role in your company is to break news, you don't want to be the one breaking news about things or encouraging people to comment. Maybe if someone from the press reaches out on something that isn't already public knowledge or something like that. So you just don't want to go to be the newsmaker for your organization unless you happen to be the company spokesman. Okay, we've gone through the whys and about building your brand and your company's reputation, gone around the hows, basically what's good practice, what to avoid doing. Now let's start getting into the specifics of LinkedIn more itself. So really the path to effectiveness in LinkedIn is 3 steps. The first step, take part and take control. The second step is to demonstrate your leadership. And the third is to gain distinctive industry insights. So let's break those down for a second. In step one, take part and take control, you want to start with your own profile, what people come upon when they see you and what's your presence, and want to get to know a little bit more about you. So you want to take control, make sure that's effective, and we'll look at that a little bit. Then you want to set the right privacy and confidentiality that may be for your role or for your personal comfort with how much information you want to share and who you share it with. And then you want to build your network over time, reach out and connect with those people you meet along the way that you find interesting and valuable. So that's getting your LinkedIn profile under control and starting to build a solid network. Then with that, then you start demonstrating your leadership, demonstrate the innovations within your company, making sure that your experts are engaged and building their expertise that's combining to build the company's reputation. As individuals, we offer an authentic face to the company and not necessarily be thought of as just a warehouse of different technology and components. And through demonstrating that, be a voice in your industry and build your thought leadership. And then finally, step 3 is really about the listening side of things. You want to make sure you're following the industry leaders and what they're saying to stay current, and make sure you're keeping up with what's the competition doing or what are some potential acquisitions for your company. That gets into how you set things and how you listen. And we'll go into some of that in a little bit more detail. But let's start with the profile. If somebody Googles your name and you've been working and building an effective LinkedIn profile, chances are you'll show up on the first page unless you have a very common name. Then maybe your company along with your name will bring you to that first page. But you want to think about 4 big things. First off, a high quality photo, and best if professional, or a very good one with what cameras can do now. But you can think of that's the logo of your personal brand. So you want to make sure you have a good photo to start with. Then LinkedIn allows you to put in a background image. You can see here that I have industrial facility in the background, because a lot of what I talk about are different areas of Emerson technologies and solutions that serve these industries. Doesn't have to be literal to that. It could be something about your interests and your passions, but you don't want to just leave the LinkedIn default that's there. That's really boring. The relevant headline is, it defaults to your title, but you want to be much more about the things you do and the value that you bring. So like in my case, I talk about being, for Emerson, a subject matter expert brand builder through encouraging people to build their brands and me showcasing them in blog posts on our Emerson Automation Experts blog. Blogger, social marketing leader. So I try to talk more about the things I do instead of saying, some sort of marketing manager or like that. And then finally, LinkedIn will default on your profile page, give you a URL that's like your name -XYZ123 or some series of alphanumeric characters. And you want to take the time and customize that, because that may be something that you use in your email footer or in a presentation or elsewhere in that. We'll show a little bit more how to do that. So those are the big 4 things you want to make sure, because when somebody comes to your profile page, it's what they're going to see right away. Next, and a lot of people never fill this out, that you have to go down and look at the experience and the different jobs that you've held and other things to learn anything about you. But There's an about section, and you should think of that as your elevator pitch. What is the things that you have, the things that you do? You want to use action verbs and reference specific things. So somebody coming across gets an idea of what you're about, your experience, your capabilities, your areas of expertise. And then thinking about it in terms of what can you do for the reader? What can they expect from you? What value do you bring? And don't be afraid to put some of your personal specialties, passions, or hobbies, because a lot of times that's what people latch onto about you. One thing here in Austin, I'm a Texas Longhorn and I enjoy the football games, everything else about it. So I'll put something like that in there. And a lot of times that's something that we can bond on. Now, I included a colleague's one because I thought she did a fantastic job. I'll just read the first sentence of it to give you a flavor for it. I help automation customers get to start up efficiently and safely, quickly recoup operational expenditures, and achieve proven results in all stages of their plant life cycle via design and implementation of Emerson's digital twin solutions. So right there in that first sentence kind of says what she can do for the customers, and then goes on a little bit about how they do it, some of her passions, like the women in STEM community that we have around here, and other things. So to me, this in a couple paragraphs gives you a very clear picture, her elevator pitch. And I encourage you, as you think about this, to really spend a little time with it and distill it down into just a couple short paragraphs so somebody can get a quick idea of what you're about. And then as you go down, there's other parts to it, key areas, sharing your experiences, your accomplishments, different things that you've done, areas of interest, activities. These you can add, take away, depending on what you have to share about it. But this rounds out the whole page and gives people a flavor for what you're all about. So you want to spend a little time and get this all in place in the way it needs to be. So as we do a checklist of it, make sure you got that good picture, make sure you filled out those top 4 areas, get that elevator pitch, that about right, put the different information. You have opportunities to show your career progression. You can upload multimedia if there's a good presentation you've given at conferences and other things, skills, endorsements. A lot of these other things right here just round out the rest of it. So with that, you basically have got your profile in good shape, and that's where you want to start. Make sure that's the way it needs to be. And just without going in and demonstrating all of it, you'll see basically if you go to your profile page, pencil icons where you start, you can edit the different sections. You can enhance with adding different profile sections as it makes sense for it. You can take them away if there's nothing you want to say about it. And then finally, be able to edit the public profile and URL that we talked about earlier. You want to get rid of that XYZ123 nonsense and make it short and something that you can show in different forms where it makes sense. And just a little bit more, if you click on that custom URL, again, a pencil, and you customize it. But I also wanted to show this because you can control the visibility of what you have on this page and others in who you share it with, just people you're connected with, anyone that Googles and comes across it. And what I advise for our folks, a lot of it depends on your role within the company, where as a marketer, maybe you want to be more open to get your message out broadly, where in sales, you may want to make it much tighter because you don't want the competitors to know which customers you're connected with and that kind of thing. So it's worth looking at that, all the settings that you can have for it, and make it something that's appropriate for your role and for your level of comfort with who you want to be able to see it. Okay, so once we've gone in, got our settings, got our profile the way we want, you want to start building your network out. Or if you're already in there, clean up that profile and be more aggressive in your connections. You know, we all meet people every day in there through the course of business or other things in a professional context. So you want to reach out to them. And when you do, it's best to personalize it. If you send me a connection request and say, hey, I saw your LinkedIn conversation, or I saw your LinkedIn presentation there, to me, that's very meaningful. Oh, that's our connection point in there. And I have an example here where this person I reached out, connected with, it was because of an article I saw that she had spent time at the University of Texas, and used that as a connection point in my request. And a lot of times, just by taking this little bit of extra step, it may start a conversation. It may lead to a business opportunity. I've had that happen numerous times as I reach out and grow my connections. Okay, now here are 12 practices to grow your network, and I'm not going to go through all of them here. I'll just point out a couple here, but all of them are very good ways to grow it. And starting up, especially if you're in sales, business development side of things, you don't want to come out of the chute guns blazing, straight up selling. I get that all the time, people trying to do that, sell me some kind of services, and sometimes when they're obnoxious about it, I just unconnect with them. It's just too much. As you get into sharing things, consistency is a great thing. Then your connections kind of know what to expect. Even if you once a week share something, you read an interesting article every Friday afternoon, you're going to share that article, share an article, offer a point of view about it, and put it out there. Just that consistency builds that personal brand brick by brick. You're constantly building it in all the people that you follow, and even people you don't, through, like number 6, if you use hashtags in there, those are basically a filtered way to see conversations based around that. So if there's one hashtag reliability, well, a lot of people look and see there. So what it means is that other people, even that you're not connected with, are seeing what you have to say. And perhaps most important in all of these is number 7, quality over quantity. You don't want to just every single article that you've ever read share, where it just becomes overwhelming for people and it's too much. You know, it's finding those ones, you have a point of view about it, you share it, and that's very effective. So I'll highlight some of those. The rest, all good ways to continue to build a powerful network that you're reaching out and connecting and interacting with. Okay, so as we get into demonstrating that thought leadership, basically 2 ways. It's the things that you create and share, and then it's engaging with what other people put out there. So on the things you create, LinkedIn basically has 2 ways. If you're a writer and like to write, there's long form articles where, much like a blog post, that you can share your thoughts in a long form. But much more common is the short form posts, where you basically maybe find an interesting article or something else you've seen online. You cut and paste the URL, which pops in the picture that you see over there on the right, and say something about it. In this case, the example was one of our Emerson experts. I just read of the comment that he had made, pulled out what I thought was the most meaningful part and put it in quotes, and shared it with my network. And even though in this case I didn't write the piece, because I had found it, curated it, thought what I got an important quote out of there, then the people that follow me assume that I have interest or knowledge in the area. So is building my personal brand in this particular area. So that's the way you create and build your thought leadership and your personal brand, kind of brick by brick in there. And the other way is with the people you're connected with. As you come across and see things they do, the simple matter of liking it gives them an indication that you saw it and it meant something to you, or adding a thoughtful comment or something like that. So again, by that engagement with what other people are putting there in LinkedIn, really builds your thought leadership and your personal brand. So don't minimize this part, even if it's carving out 15 minutes over the course of your week to go and kind of look through your feed on the main page of LinkedIn and engage with others and maybe offer up one in there. The simple investment of doing that will build your brand, your personal brand over time. So that's a very important thing. So for the things that you share, where do you find it? And what we tell our subject matter experts when we go through training like this is to follow the 5-3-2 rule, or 50%, 30%, 20% of the things that you share in there. So the 50% is industry related or professional content. There's a lot of places to find that, the news sites, just in the LinkedIn status feed, maybe in your email, the newsletters and different forms that you get in there pointing to articles. Twitter lists, if you're a Twitter user, which is basically a filtered view around a certain subject area. Like I have a list of all the trade press editors that I kind of follow, so I can quickly scan and see what they're talking about. And articles, other advice from thought leaders. So half of what you share are things about what's going on in the industry, in the technology area, that kind of thing. 30% is from your company. And there's a lot of different places, from the YouTube channel to the company website to any blogs or communities or social accounts that you have, or even what the company is sharing on their LinkedIn company page. So a lot of times you can share that, offer some perspective on it. And again, you don't want this to be 100% of your posts over here, because then you look like the PR manager for the company that's just pumping out all company news. So that's about 30%. And then the final 20% are your interests, your passions, something like that. Because a lot of times those are the things that become the most popular, go viral, and get more people to find out about you. I just give a quick example of recently we lost one of the greatest guitarists of all time, Eddie Van Halen. And I came upon an article that talked about not the fact that he was a great world-class guitarist, but he was a do-it-yourself hacker when it came to building guitars, the pickups, the amplifiers. And there was this video and a write-up of all the different things he hacked around with to do it, which I thought was great, because that's what, as engineers, we like to do. So it was a side of him I never knew about, and it was something I shared it on LinkedIn, really took off, and a lot of people thought about that, especially bringing it back to the technical realm about it. So that's an example. So don't be afraid to share that, but don't make that everything, because if it's the personal stuff only, then you got other places like Facebook and Instagram and all those other ones to be able to do that. Okay, so keeping track on industry news. So you make sure you're following the key competitors, you're following different other companies in your areas of interest, and by doing that, then that puts into your feed interesting things that you're scanning through and can be able to share with others. So who to follow? This is kind of a sum. It's not all inclusive, but industry experts, competitors, people in technology areas, influencers, people that have a voice out there that you respect. All the publications pretty much have their LinkedIn sites and other social media places that you want to follow, and your own experts and peers. So let's talk about and wind it all down with the 7 best practices to build trust and grow influence. And like we saw earlier with the example of the salesperson, build relationships first. Don't come out guns blazing, selling away. Much like in real life, in real situations, the more you establish the relationship first, then if there's things that can influence or help your business or others, that will follow. Number 2, actively find and follow others to build your network of fellow experts. You may find them in many different places, LinkedIn groups, many other places out there. And as you come across them in day-to-day life, we talked about the importance of, as you meet people in a professional way, that you want to connect with them and build your network, because that builds your influence and ultimately builds your personal brand. And people appreciate when they do things out there that you recognize it. So you applaud experts and other helpful folks. You can reshare their content, mention them in thoughts that you have, and comment on the posts they have. Everyone appreciates when other people engage with their content, and that kind of establishes you in their peer group. So very important thing to do there. And as we had with one of the things, practice responsiveness. Answer questions and engage with others. You don't want to be the one that posts something and comes back for a month later and sees that a bunch of people had questions or something about it. So you want to stay engaged, not like every second, but within the next day or two that you're keeping track of things. We talked about all the things to your profile, and remember not to skip cleaning up that personal profile from that default one that's just no good. And once you have it, promote it well in your email, on your business card, in your presentations, all across there. You're responsible for building your personal brand. You're the ultimate marketer for it. So make sure you're promoting it, and think of LinkedIn as your personal brand's homepage. So you want to make sure you're being a good marketer there and building that personal brand. Demonstrate your expertise in interesting content you share. So sometimes maybe instead of just liking a post, it's worth adding a comment to why you liked it, or even pulling out the quote of what you found most interesting or impactful about the quote in there, because that just demonstrates that you were following what's going on, what was meaningful to you. And even though someone did the work of creating that whole thing, you're getting your brand built along as part of it. It comes along for the ride because you took the time to add your perspective to it. And we're all problem solvers here. And as you come across and as you solve something, to be able to distill it down, let others know what worked for you, people really appreciate it. You appreciate when you're trying to solve a problem, Google, come across something that somebody's done to solve it, and others will appreciate you for that, especially the more technical that you are in there. So you want to make sure that as you're solving problems, get it out there somewhere in the digital realm where others can find you and know about it. Okay, and let's wrap it up with some key takeaways in all of this. first understand the why. Your participation in LinkedIn in a very broad global way builds your personal brand and effectiveness even more than what you can do face-to-face or through other communications means. In fact, participation in social networks can be some of the broadest ways to be able to build that personal brand. And ultimately, the collection of personal brands within your company is what builds your company's reputation in there. So like we do here and encouraging our experts to get trained and get out there and build their personal brands and share their expertise, it ends up building the overall company reputation. We talked about, as you're working on your profile, make sure you have a good quality photo. Can't stress enough, that's your personal logo to your personal brand. So make sure that's a good quality picture you have. And when you're sharing things, think about the value you deliver to those you want to reach and fine-tune your profile. And really not just in your profile, demonstrate it in the things that you're sharing there and continue to build that brand over time. And more important than anything is, we're talking personal brands, and everything as part of that is be yourself. Don't try to pretend and put on a persona to be something you're not, because then you're not really being transparent. So be yourself, bring your personality into it, because that's what other people gravitate to. The more you do it, and you'll have fun doing it, and you'll be amazed at how quickly you grow your network and your personal brand. And what we find more often than not is it's amazing what it'll do to open up business opportunities for your company. I don't know how many times where I'm not the expert on valves or instrumentation or advanced control or a lot of the other things that we do here at Emerson, but somebody found something through me, reached out to me in a private LinkedIn message. I get them connected with the expert, and it leads to business opportunity for us. So the investments that you put into it not only help you personally, they drive value for your organization. So I know this was a quick tour through all this, but I think it was important first to understand the why that we want to do this and use it, how, what makes good practices, the do's, the don'ts, and then finally the what's, the different areas to make sure that you're working on your profile and the network that you're building, and to work on that information that you're sharing to the process of building your brand, and making sure you have a good, effective listening network so you're connecting with other experts and advancing the knowledge that you have in here, all of which LinkedIn supports very, very, very well. So I want to thank everyone today for your time, and let's open it up. Are there any questions that you have for me?